Today I'm building in some bookcases and creating an accent wall. Let me catch you up.
Here's a room upstairs. You can see it's just kind of a catch-all. We have extra artwork, all kinds of stuff, and I want to turn it into more of an office or studio with a desk. So I started with this desk here. This is a Pottery Barn Bedford desk, and I've had it for many, many years. I did a separate video on it. I decided to refinish it, and I'm going to paint it the same color that I'm painting the wall. This is not real wood, so I gave it a really good sand, and then I used some DAP wood filler to really smooth out the finish. Then I primed it with Ben Shellac primer. I still had some areas that I needed a little bit more fill, so I went in with glazing Bondo just to make sure that it was a really smooth surface, and then I did my second coat of primer. For the paint, I'm using Command Paint by Benjamin Moore. It's like an industrial type of paint, and it dries rock solid. It is fabulous for a high wearing area. Then I spray painted all of the hardware, added some extra accents. I wanted it to look kind of like a campaign set, so I added some extra little details on the sides, as well as some little corner brackets as well. And here's the after. So this is my first step in creating my accent wall. The second step was taking these Billy bookcases, and I'm going to do the same thing with it. So we have had these bookcases forever, probably over 10 years. So we've moved several times and they've just kept coming with us. So again, because this is more of a laminate, you can paint it, but you just have to really make sure you do your prep well. And so I like to give it a nice scuff sand, clean it down with some liquid sandpaper, and then I do prime it with the Ben Shellac primer again. That is a really key when you're trying to paint something that's laminate. I like to give it a good scuff sand in between coats, and then I did another coat. I'm using my Earlex 5700 to do the spraying, and it worked fabulous. After they were done drying, I went ahead and hauled them back upstairs, and now I'm ready to actually start the build-in process. So here's what it looks like with it all set up. This color is called Intrigue by Benjamin Moore. It's beautiful, kind of a moody green. You can see it looks okay, but I think it can look better. So my idea for this is to put some molding in the middle, maybe add some wall sconces, have a nice little chair, and I want it to be a little bit more substantial, a little bit more built-in look. So I went ahead and covered everything up, pulled them back out, took all my measurements, and so I'm trying to decide how exactly I'm going to set all of this up. I knew I needed to at least get the baseboards off. So I've actually never taken a baseboard off. So I used a straight edge just to score along the top of it. And then I'm using like a putty knife, and you'll see later I have like a crowbar, and I'm just pulling it up. It was really tough to get out. I had like 3-inch nails in it, so I'm not really sure why they needed such long nails, but I did eventually get it out. Now I'm taking all my measurements so that I can go to Lowe's and pick up all of the things that I need to make it look built in.
So the next thing I had to decide is, where do I want to place the bookcases? I do tend to move things around a little bit, and I do want things to function in a different way. So this may not always be an office. It could be a guest room, could be a den. So I wanted the flexibility. If I decided to pull the desk, maybe I could fit a sofa there or a bed. So I looked up what would be the standard size of a 3-seat sofa, and the minimum size was 72 inches. And it goes up from there. So I wanted to leave at least maybe 80 inches in between the bookcases so that I had enough flexibility that if I wanted to change the space at some point, I could. So that made me decide I'm going to shove the bookcases all the way up against the sides of the room. So I'm going to take off the baseboards along the side walls, push the bookcases as far as I can. That'll leave me enough room in the middle to be able to have some flexibility if I decide to change the design later on. Let's go.
I'm partnering with Lowe's on this project, and they're really helping me bring this vision to life. So I'm going to pick up my Ben shellac primer, and here's the poplar boards that I'm using. They're 1x2, and they're going to be nailed right to the front of the shelves just to make them look thicker. I'm going to go through the same process. I'm going to sand them, wipe them back, and then I'll prime them and paint them. I'm going to attach these pieces to the front of the shelves there, but you can see there's also a seam right there that needs to be covered up. That's where the extender is attached to the bookcase. So I picked up some board at Lowe's. I'm transferring my measurements, then I'll cut it with my circular saw, and that's going to cover over that seam and make it look seamless.
Okay, that worked. Was it ideal? No. Do I need a table saw? Yes. My dad always told me, buy tools as you have a project that you need them for. Unfortunately, this project, I needed a lot of tools and I could only get a few. So I needed a miter saw, I needed a cordless brad nailer, and I needed a multi-tool that I could cut the baseboards with. So those are the three I chose to get. I'm hoping later on down the road, I'll get a table saw and a router. But you gotta do what you gotta do. So I was able to cut it with my circular saw, and there's gonna be trim on both sides, caulked as a wonder. So it looks really good, actually. You just gotta go slow. It's gonna cover the sides where I have the seam on the bookcase. I'm gonna get them primed up and painted, and then I can get them adhered. So sometimes you just gotta work with what you've got and try to get creative.
I still need to prime and paint these boards, so I'm going to go through the same process. I'm just going to shoot it with a little bit of liquid sandpaper, and then I'll be ready for priming. I decided to just use a spray can of the Ben shellac primer. It is $20 a can, but I just need one coat, and then that way I have really good adhesion. So I'm going to use that. It's a lot quicker, a lot easier, and so I'll give it a really good coat of the primer, and then I can move on to my paint. I always like to scuff sand in between my coats to make sure that it's really smooth. I'm going to use the same paint that I used for the desk and the bookcases. It's the Command paint, and I added a little bit of Floetrol to it, and it goes on beautifully. Now I'm going to find the studs so that I can attach my bookcases to the wall. I like to go one direction and then make a mark, come back the other direction, and then I make an X in the middle. That way I know where the middle of my stud is. This is the baseboard I'm going to be using. I'm just going to cut it to size, and this will fit underneath the bookcases.
I'm ready to go ahead and cut my baseboard. So I've decided, I picked up this Dremel. This is a multi-tool, and this section right here will make a clean cut on my baseboard. That I'm just cutting away 11 inches, which is the depth of the bookcases, and that way I can just slide it right in. And then I will be creating some molding around it. For the base, I don't have a lot of clearance. A lot of times people use like a 2x4 base underneath the bookcases, but I don't have that much clearance on the ceiling. So in my old house, they used to just sit on 1/2-inch plywood. That was my base. So I'm just gonna go with this again. So I've cut it down to the measurement of each of the bookcases, the width, and this will be the base. They'll go on top of this, and then I will secure them to the wall, and then I can start trimming them out. And if I have to shim this, I can to make it level, but I'm going to start with this.
I took my measurements for the depth of the bookcases and transfer them to the wall, and that's the area that I'm going to cut out from the baseboard in order to slide the bookcase directly against the side wall. This little tool works great. It also has a sanding attachment that I can switch out if I need to sand like little detailed areas. So it cuts, it sands, it does lots of things. So I'm super impressed. Now I'm ready to start cutting my 1x2 boards. The first one I'm going to cut is the one I'm going to use to attach the bookcases to the wall.
I got the bookcases secured to the walls. The backs are really flimsy, so it's not a hardboard. So I needed to make sure that I was securing something into a stud, but then I also had to secure it into the top shelf because it wouldn't do me any good if it was secured to a stud, but it would pull away from the cabinet. So I have 2 going into studs and I have 2 going into the cabinets. It's very secure. I made sure everything was level. So now I am ready to adhere the little panel that's going to cover the seam where the 2 joints meet on the side with the extension and the bookcase. And then I'm ready to start attaching the side trims. I'm using 1x2 poplar. And then I'll have to decide how I'm going to attach some crown molding. And then the baseboard, they don't have the size, the width that I need at Lowe's. I did check. They only carry 4 1/4, and I need 4 1/2 to match my existing baseboard trim. So I'm gonna have to go source that as well. So we're making progress.
Now that they're secure, I'm ready to cover up that seam. So you remember that piece that I cut a while back? Now I'm ready to just trim it to size, and I'll use my brad nailer to attach it. And once those are attached, I'm ready to start adhering the 1x2 poplar boards to the sides. Then I'm going to attach them to every shelf front as well. So here's what it looks like after. I have the 2 poplar boards on each side and 1 on every single shelf. Here's the before. Again, it looks good, but look how much more beefy it looks, just a little bit more substantial. Now I'm ready for base molding. Now, I've not done base molding before and crown molding and all that, so I'm not very good at this. This is a learn as I go kind of process, and you'll see I have some improving to do. In order to get the sides flush, I decided to use my multi-tool, and I'm just going to try to cut that curve and do the best I can. So I got the curve and it looked pretty good, and I thought, okay, I can fill that in with some caulk. See, that looks pretty good. But the problem I ran into was then it was too long on the other side. So I took it down and cut it with my miter saw after I was trimming it with the multi-tool, and it ended up being too short. So I had to fill it in with another piece that I cut off. So this is going to trigger some of you. I know you're going to be like, what is she doing? This is me learning how to do something. So if that was horrible and I triggered something, I'm sorry, but this is me doing the best that I can. I'm going to use a little bit of tiny molding to cover up some of those seams, and now I'm ready to fill in all of those nail holes. You can see this takes a long time. It's not hard, but it's just tedious. There was a few areas I had to come back with my nail set and just seat some of those nails a little bit better. You can see though, I'm going to fill this in with some wood filler, and I think you'll be surprised. It won't look amazing at the end, but I think it'll look better. Next up, I tried to do some picture frame moldings, but I ran into some problems.
Okay, I'm out here cutting and I'm seriously questioning my life choices. They make it look so easy, and I'm telling you it's not. So I'm cutting these and I forgot to take into account that it's not just, you know, like I could go either way. Like this is the thick side, this is the thin side, so this side is gonna go on the outside of my miter. And so when I cut these, I didn't take that into account, and so they won't fit together. So I basically have two left sides instead of having a right and a left, because this right and left, this is the fat side, that's the skinny side, that won't work. So I have to go buy and, you know, a couple more of these because I messed it up. Boo.
After all the wood fill dried, I gave it a really nice sand, and then I can go in and do touch-ups. Once the touch-ups were done, I was ready to paint the wall. I went with the exact same color. We're kind of going for more of a color drenching. Everything is going to be the same color. When I paint walls, I like to do all the cutting in, and then I come back and fill it in with my roller. And here it is after the first coat. Now I went back to Lowe's to look for some molding, and I came across Batten. And these are customizable wall accents. There's no cutting, you simply snap them together. So I was like, I think this is a really good solution for me. So they are plastic. All you have to do is just give them a nice little scuff sand. You can see I use the same liquid sandpaper. I'm going to go through the same process. I'm going to prime them. I'm going to paint them, and then I'll show you how I snap them together.
I had bought some molding and I was going to cut my own molding for the accent wall, but I pivoted. I'm going to figure that out another day. And I found this at Lowe's. This is called Build a Batten, and it comes in already sizes that are cut. All you have to do is simply snap the pieces together. And so you snap them together, you prime and paint them. You can either glue them onto the wall with liquid nails, or you can use a brad nailer. Easy peasy. So that's what I'm gonna use. Since I'm just doing an accent wall, I think it's gonna be a really great, easy solution.
They have these little connectors that go on each corner, and you simply snap them in to each side. You can hear a little snap when it goes in, right? And then you just simply snap it into the other side, and you're good to go. I'm going to attach mine with brad nails, and then I'll caulk it, and then touch up the paint, and I'll be good to go. I had to rethink my measurements because I was using the Build a Batten. So for this one, I simply decided I'm going to find the center, and I'm going to establish my line with a laser level. I found the center line of my 35-inch batten. I used a wood block to establish how far down I wanted it from the ceiling. And then once I had all of those measurements and lines, I was simply able to put it up, make sure that it was level, and then I could adhere it with my brad nailer. For the side pieces, I did something similar. I took what wall space I had left and I divided it by 2. Found the center mark, lined up my laser level, and then I marked the center of the smaller batten and I lined that up with my middle mark. My laser level has definitely been the star show of this particular project. I love a tripod that can go really high and really low, and this one I actually had to put it on a table so that I could get really high. But once I had that laser line, then I was able to simply adhere it very quickly. For the caulk, I'm using something different. This is called Exact Color. And it's a caulk that you can actually tint. So I've never used it before, but I saw one of my friends tried it. And using the syringe, you're going to pull up about 30 milliliters of paint. So I'm just using the wall paint, and I'm simply putting it into the tube. So I've cut it off with a razor blade enough so that I could fit that in there, and then you shake it for 60 seconds. After you're done shaking it, then you're going to add a hardener to it. Now, the mistake I made with the hardener was because I shook it, I needed to push it down. You can see when I first put it in, it kind of starts going everywhere. And so I just didn't have enough room. So I needed to really tamp it down so I had room to put in more product. So as soon as I got it all in, then you put the lid back on and you're going to shake it for another 60 seconds. The last step is waiting 30 minutes for the hardener to thicken up, and then you're ready to use it. It comes with a point, you can just cut it off, and then you're ready to caulk. I'm a terrible caulker. It came out way too much, but I should have gone downstairs and gotten my little tool that makes it better. But at the end of the day, yes, it's messy. I know that it's messy, but it worked. I'll still have to do some touch-ups, but the colored caulk made a big difference. And if I had to put white, it would have been a lot, probably would have had to do 2 coats of paint in order to cover it up. I really love using the colored caulk. I just think it makes a huge difference. You can see it's a bit of a different sheen, so I had to come in. Yes, I had to touch everything up, but it really is a pretty quick process. Once all those touch-ups were done, I was ready to put the desk back and work on putting up the wall sconces. Now, I didn't want to hardwire anything in, and I'm going to use battery-powered light bulbs. I liked this set. I like the brass with the nice little shade. And so in order to install this, I'm going to install it similar to how you would install it if you are hardwiring it, but I'm just simply attaching the metal piece to the wall, and I'm going to attach the brass part to it. So you see, I think it's really pretty. So it has some screws on the side. You're just going to simply take those out, and that will allow that silver piece to come out. I'm going to take all of this section off, those screws, and then once I take that off, I'll thread it through and re-adhere the nut on the other side. I was trying to decide where I should put them, if I wanted them to be in the middle of that shelf or if I wanted them to sit a little higher or lower. And I decided to go ahead and go with right in the middle. So I took my measurements to determine where the middle is. And then I set up my laser level. I used my tape measure to find the middle of that shelving area so I could adjust my laser level to make sure that it was really sitting right in the middle. After I found the center of the metal piece, I'm going to transfer that measurement to the wall. I like to always double check before I screw things in, so I double checked my measurements left to right to make sure, and then I went ahead and made my pilot holes. Now I'm ready to attach this metal piece right into the wall, and then I'll attach the sconce directly to that. These are the bulbs that I picked up. They are rechargeable, so you just simply plug them in, let them charge. When I plug them in, you'll see that they're red. When they're ready to go, the light will turn off. You screw the bottom part into the light socket, and then the top is a magnet, and it'll just fit in there once it's charged. Once the wall was done, I decided to go ahead and paint the rest of the room. So I'm painting it White Dove by Benjamin Moore. It's a really soft color that I've used throughout a lot of my downstairs, and I thought it would really help brighten up the rest of the space because this is a fairly dark room. It doesn't get a ton of light at certain points of the day, and that wall is also very dark, and so I think it really helped brighten it up. I'm adding some curtain panels. I wanted it to be as tall as possible, so I'm mounting my curtain rod as far to the ceiling as I can, and then I'm just going to put some linen draperies there just to kind of soften the room. Well, let's look back at the before. This was just kind of a catch-all room, just kind of a hodgepodge room. But I really had a vision for it to be kind of a library feel, a little bit moody. So with a lot of paint and some trial and error when it came to using my saw. Here is the finished product. What do you think? I think it looks a lot like my inspiration, and I love it. Those Build-A-Batten saved the day. I think when you have a small space and you want to put an easy Build-A-Batten is your way to go. I love it. I think it looks really good. Very high end. These are just IKEA Billy Bookcases. And I think by adding those trim pieces on the sides and on the front makes a huge difference. And then by insetting the wall sconces, I think that also provides a nice little touch. Those are the linen curtains I added. They provide some filtered light, still keeping it light and bright. Here's some of the details with the board and batten. You can see I have really nice caulk lines. You can see that it has really nice seams. I was able to caulk it. Very easy to use. I would highly recommend it if you're unsure about mitering things. It made it very easy. So here's the little area that I messed up on. It's not great, but it's okay. It's just for me. So I know it probably triggers some people, but you know what? I'm okay with it. And if I get better someday, maybe I'll redo it. But for right now, I'm very pleased with it. I love how the desk turned out. I love all the little extra brass accents. I think that adds to it. Now this wall, I would like to add a couple more chairs to it, create a little seating area over here. Then I'd like to put like a cabinet and a mirror there to kind of bounce off some light. And then I'd like to get a woven shade for the window as well. Now for the lights, I'm hiding the remote controls in my little box. And you can see I can just cycle through all kinds of different temperatures and it works perfect. Here's a few more videos and I'll come back at the end. So what do you think? Is this a project you would tackle yourself? I really enjoyed it, and I'm hoping that I can add some more picture molding to other places in my house. Eventually, I will figure out picture frame molding, but this was a good option for this particular project. But tell me what you think in the comments, and thanks so much for watching.